Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Daki Time. I'm Daki, and in this episode, we're going to dive in, as you probably read in the title of this video, we're going to dive in and explore a couple of reasons why the Lich King could quite possibly be making a return in either the end of Battle for Azeroth or the beginning of the next expansion. Or somewhere along the lines, or when is his return going to be? So a bit of a disclaimer here, guys and girls, is basically I am going to miss things. I do apologize. I'm basically going to skim through this to give my points across. Second thing is that I'm deliberately going to miss a few things because they are going to travel down an unending road of stories and everything that aren't going to support the reasons why he could be coming back. So long story short is I'm going to miss things. I know I'm going to miss things, but we're going to dive in here, guys, and we're going to jump straight into this because it's going to be a long Daki time and explain the reasons why I believe the Lich King is set for a return. So follow me, guys, as we, discuss this topic. First of all, before we even dive into the points about why he could be coming back, we need to understand who is the Lich King. What is the Lich King right now? We sort of understand him as Bolvar, sitting on top of the frozen throne in Icecrown. We think of him as that's the Lich King right now. But who is the Lich King realistically? The Lich King used to be Ner'zhul, which was a dark orc shaman that Kil'jaeden took his spirit and literally fused it with the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne. So basically, he took the spirit of Ner'zhul, fused it with the armor, and set him atop of Icecrown on the Frozen Throne, which, mind you, we should point out was made on top of the blood of Yogg-Saron. Or Yogg-Saron? Yeah. Long story short is, there's a lot of old god stuff going up there. But that is who the first Lich King was. Fast forward until Ner'zhul basically encourages Arthas to come to Icecrown, up the Frozen Throne, and take upon himself the Helm of Domination. Now, Ner'zhul was basically coaching him into this, basically, and using his beliefs at the time to say, this is the right path for you, this is your destiny, and thus the events of Wrath of the Lich King play out. At the end of the Wrath of the Lich King, we do defeat Arthas on top of Icecrown Citadel near the Frozen Throne, and we are told that the Scourge need a leader. They need someone to be controlled, otherwise they're going to run rampant across the world, and, you know, that is what it is. Bolvar takes up the helm and places it on his head, and now he becomes the Lich King. Or does he, basically? So we know Bolvar has the helmet on, and he controls the Scourge, basically. But is that really the Lich King? The Lich King, if we sort of talk about it, is a combination of Ner'zhul, Arthas, Bolvar together, basically, is really who the Lich King is, sort of. And this is shown via when we do the Death Knight campaign in Legion. We do pick up the new blades, our weapons, to fight off the Legion, and Bolvar asks us to enter the swords, enter the spirit realm of the swords, and basically quell the darkness within. And when we go in there, what is the darkness? The darkness is Ner'zhul and Arthas talking to each other and playing out past events, basically. We defeat both of them and we get sent back, and basically that was our way of quelling the darkness in the blades. I'd like to think of it as, and I've read a lot of topics on this, that is to stop the blades influencing us, while we were in part of the Legion. So by quelling the darkness in the blades, which were made from the fragments of Frostmourne, does that enable Bolvar to have a more direct connection to the Death Knights? So you see where I'm going with this, guys. So we know that Bolvar is in control right now. We can see that by the dialogue and how he talks to us and everything. So we know it's Bolvar talking, sort of. And we know that we've quelled the darkness. Now, quelling doesn't necessarily mean to kill off. It does mean to diminish, basically. So we've diminished Arthas and Ner'zhul within the blade, which could have a direct influence on us, so Bolvar has a more direct influence. So the first thing, basically, is that Bolvar is in control, is what I'm trying to point out here. That Arthas is not in control, Ner'zhul's not in control. It is Bolvar that is basically telling us what to do. So that is who the Lich King is, in my belief. There's a lot more to explain on that, but I don't want to sit here for an hour talking about who the Lich King is. It's basically to understand that Bolvar is the one pulling the strings here right now, which is good and bad, which we will talk about a bit later on. So basically, what are the points for the Lich King set to return? Now, before we even talk about these points, I would like to point out that the Lich King, or Bolvar, is not good, nor is he bad. He does his things for his own reasons and what he believes is the right method. And this is pointed out quite clearly amongst the Death Knight campaign, and also a little bit of dialogue in Battle for Azeroth. Now, we're getting there, guys. We're chunking through it. I'm giving you a whole bunch of spoilers, but we're getting there. So let's talk about the first sort of implementation of why Bolvar could come back. And the first one is when we go to get the blade for our Frost Death Knight. And basically, we have to come to an agreement with the Lich King. And he says that as long as the Death Knights serve as his arm for vengeance against the Legion, in return, he will keep the Scourge contained in Northrend. So that point alone, basically, it might be a bluff, but it could also prove that he has the ability to send the Scourge throughout Azeroth if he really wants to. So my first point here is that he has the ability. So he basically threatens us and he says, you Death Knights will serve under my control, you will listen to me, you will do what I do, and in return, I will make sure the Scourge don't go running rampant across the world. So that's my first point. The second point here is that he basically gives us permission to search through Icecrown and amongst the world for the Shards of Frostmourne, one of the most powerful weapons we've seen in game, amongst a lot of powerful weapons, but the Frostmourne itself, basically. He tells us to collect the shards, fuse them together, and forge 2 new blades for the Frost Death Knights. Now, this in its own right, basically, is him basically saying, you need a strong weapon, I know where you can get a strong weapon. Here you go. So he's giving us these massively important weapons, which, yes, were diminished at the end of Legion. No, at the beginning of Battle for Azeroth when we... at the end of Legion when we had to quell the sword and the... It's another story. Basically, they've got no power, but it's still Frostmourne inside those weapons. As we've seen from Xalatath, they can still be re-brought up in story arcs in some form or fashion. So he has the ability to do that. And now another point is basically he gave us permission to raise the 4 Horsemen. Now, in context and at the time, it was to give us better and stronger allies to fight off the Legion. That was really it. Amongst all the other campaigns in Legion, it's a matter of gathering your allies, gathering the strong together to defeat the Legion. Now, he basically has told us that was the case. Go raise the 4 Horsemen again. Go raise 4 very strong allies and fight the Legion with those 4 Horsemen. But when you look at it in a way, and he's already threatened us once that he could release the Scourge on the world, he could release the 4 Horsemen as well. So he's putting players on the chessboard. He's gathering all his armament. He's getting ready, basically, is what I'm saying. He is strengthening his resolve, and he has enough potential to make a return in some way. But that there's more to it. He has to have a reason to return. So we know a couple of points about why he could return, you know. What are those reasons? Now, there's one big reason and there's 2 slightly smaller reasons that I'd like to point out. So let's talk about the smaller ones first and foremost. So one of the topics is Wrathion is on search for the Dragon Isles. It's in the WoW Wiki, the Gamepedia pages. You can go and read this. Basically, Wrathion is in search of the Dragon Isles. But what are the Dragon Isles? Now, it reads, and I'm going to read this directly from Wowpedia. Basically, it is a group of islands that were intended for a level 65 or 70 raid within World of Warcraft, located north of Lordaeron and west of Quel'Thanas. Before being cut, they were intended to be temples to the old gods. So you see what I'm saying here? So if Wrathion finds the Dragon Isles, and he does find out that these are temples to the old gods, if that is the way it's going to be implemented, you can see how you can see how this could really play out with an old god expansion. Now, what does that have anything to do with the Lich King returning? Well, I'd like to make the point that if the old gods do come into this world and they populate this world with or without the shadow or the void helping out, so if the old gods can bring forth the shadow or bring about another black empire of sorts, we're going to need someone very, very strong on our side. Leading to my point of the Lich King returning. The Lich King could sense this danger, and because he does not want to be evil and he doesn't want to be super great either, he could be a useful ally to bring the Scourge to the forefront to help with the Old God invasion, or the shadow, the void, basically coming forth. So you see where I'm going. It's a bit of a disjointed point here, guys, but you see where I'm going with this, is that he can become a great ally. Rather than being this big, bad, evil king sitting upon his throne and we have to go and defeat the Scourge. We've already done that in Wrath of the Lich King. There's no point in returning back to the Wrath of the Lich King and following events that have already previously happened. So why not turn the Lich King into an ally? Now, if Wrathion finds the Dragon Isles, and now Wrathion himself is nor evil nor good as well. I should also point that out. It is also stated that he is for his own usefulness. He doesn't want to be this big bad tyrant. He doesn't want to be this really great person either. He wants to, he's doing his own thing, and he's doing it really, really well. So my point is if Wrathion finds the Dragon Isles, he brings about the Old God invasion, because the Dragon Isles are basically temples to the Old Gods. If this is the way it's going to end up being, we could need to seek the Lich King in coming and helping us with defeating anything that might come to our way. So that's one point. So the second point I'd like to point out is that if Sylvanas, and this really comes down to how the end of Battle for Azeroth might end, is if Sylvanas is continuing her like a war campaign, I guess, her march for whatever she's doing, if she's continuing doing this, it could actually force the Lich King's hand to come about. And this is the most likely event that I personally believe is going to happen. So it is stated, I'm going to read this off the page here as well, is basically in Battle for Azeroth, we know Vol'jin died, and it was said that the Loa spoke to him and told him that Sylvanas was going to be the war chief. Or was it, basically? So Vol'jin, who died, basically, who was war chief of the Horde, sought, and I'm reading this straight off the page here, sought to find out who it was that had told him his deathbed to name Sylvanas as war chief. He had come to believe it was not the Loa that did so, that in fact it was someone darker and stronger. Vol'jin, Bane, and Taligen, sorry, my apologies, traveled to the Frozen Throne to confront the Lich King about it. The Lich King told Vol'jin that he was not responsible, and that Sylvanas was upsetting the balance of life and death. Furthermore, the Lich King informed Vol'jin that he had been altered more than he realized, and that neither undead nor damned he could belong in the Frozen Throne. So guys, what I'm saying here is that Sylvanas is doing something funky, basically, and the Lich King is not happy with it. So, with that said, is Sylvanas' plans going to force the Lich King to come out and say, look, you are doing something wrong here, Sylvanas. You are upsetting the balance of life and death. Very important words there, guys, because in another video, which I'm going to probably release next week, actually, we're going to talk a little bit about the cosmology map. It's another video, guys. There's spoilers on that one. But the life and death balance. Now, you've got to understand that the Lich King controls the death side, or the undeath side. And something is out of whack here, and he's not happy about it. So, what that means is my point here is basically, if Sylvanas is going to continue her campaign, is it going to force the Lich King's hand to come out and basically put a stop to Sylvanas? And will that lead us into the next expansion? So, this is the series of events that I foresee. This is the one that I most likely think is going to happen. We go about defeating N'Zoth. N'Zoth is dealt with to the point, or he runs away. We don't really know. We deal with N'Zoth. Then the very final raid of Battle for Azeroth forces the Lich King to come out and basically help defeat Sylvanas in one way or another, whether it be entrapping her in some way, whether it be killing her off, whether it diminishing her to a point where she can no longer become some tyrant again. Who knows? But or does she turn into a Valkyrie? We don't know. But it forces the Lich King to come out, basically. The Lich King is now out in the open, and he has basically stepped foot into another expansion. So we're transitioning into another expansion now. He is basically at the forefront. He is nor good nor evil, and this could really open up potentials for Wrathion to find the Dragon Isles, find the Old God temples, and bring forth more Old Gods. And, there's so many events and so many paths that we can take. I'm just giving you guys points about what I think could quite possibly be, and I do believe the Lich King will come back in some way or form. Now, the last point I'd like to make here, guys, is that it's a very minor point, and this could be just coincidence, and I'm sort of on the fence with this one because it's been used several times, is the songs they've used for both themes, for Wrath of the Lich King and Battle for Azeroth. Now, do know that they've used this song a few times, but basically the Lich King, or the Wrath of the Lich King main theme song, now I'm not going to play him for copyright purposes, but the main theme of Wrath of the Lich King and the song What Makes Us Strong, which is a Battle for Azeroth song in the soundtrack listing, both utilized the last, I think it's like 20 seconds, are identical between the two songs. And in translated from, I think it's Italian into English, it basically, both songs chant welcome the doom, fate or destiny, welcome the war, in both songs, basically. So it could be a coincidence. I'd like just to make the point because it's a very quirky coincidence, basically. I kind of like it how they've utilized it both. So you can understand the song in Battle for Azeroth is completely different all the way up until the last 20 seconds. And at which point it replays the same last 20 odd seconds, I think it's 20 odd seconds, of the Wrath of the Lich King main theme, and it basically chants these words, welcome the doom, welcome the war, and it replays that. So a bit of a coincidence, but is that a throwback basically, and Blizzard's way of hinting that at the end of Battle for Azeroth, hence at the end of the song, we may see a return of the Lich King in some way. Coincidence? It quite possibly could be. It's just a hell of a good song, so they probably just threw that in there anyway. So guys, I've been rambling on for a long time, and I've probably made no sense of all this, but long story short is there is a couple of good points about why he could return. There is a lot of threats being thrown out by the Lich King in the Death Knight campaign back in Legion, which could point at him rebelling or basically saying, look, I have the power, I have all the pawns in place, you are at my mercy now, or I have everything ready, and he could be a great ally, he could be a great nemesis, enemy. So there's points all across the board, guys. I thought I'd start the ball rolling. So in another upcoming videos, I'm going to try and clarify a lot more points and sort of simplify all this, because this probably made no sense to you all, and I'm very sorry if it didn't. But thank you all so much for listening. It has been going on for almost 20 minutes now. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching all of my videos. Leave a comment in the comment section down below if any of this made sense to you. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if it did terrible. Let me know somehow. But until next time, everyone, have a great day.